My talk is really broken up into three parts. I'm going to tell you how drones work. I'm going to tell you how drone photography works. And then I'm going to subject you to a slideshow of images that I've taken with my drone. So what is a drone? Definition, the most common definition is unmanned aerial vehicle, which makes some sense. But otherwise, we can think of a drone as a robotic helicopter or even a flying computer with sensors and a camera attached. As you know, there are several types of drones. Military drones, commercial drones, recreational drones. And here are some images of typical examples. You recognize the US military drone, the Reaper. If you have $30 million, you might be able to acquire one of these, but if you had security. This is a commercial drone with some kind of payload. And this is my drone, which is a typical recreational drone. This is a laundry list of all the applications, and there are probably some that I've omitted. You can look this over. Unfortunately, we're becoming more and more familiar with this aspect, the military drones. My talk is limited to recreational photography, the use of drones for that application. I'm going to begin by talking about how drones work. And I know most of you are scientists or engineers, so I'd like to ask your indulgence. Please suppress your laughter or at least turn your audio off while you're laughing. There will be an opportunity to ask questions after each section of my talk. Well, if you and I were to collaborate to build a drone, what would we need? We'd need a frame, a superstructure to contain all the other components. We'd need a source of power to drive the drone. We'd need a propulsion system to get the drone up in the air and to control its movement. We'd like to have a series of sensors in the drone that would monitor where the drone is, what the drone is doing, and what's in the environment of the drone. We would definitely need a flight control system to give it instructions on how to fly. And we'd need a communication system that would be able to talk to the drone from our position on the ground. And finally, if we're going to take pictures, we need a camera. That's basically the components of a drone. And now we'll look at each component individually. This is my drone, Amelia. And Amelia agreed to come today. She's very busy, but here she is. And this gives you a better sense of size. You can see my hand as giving some scale. And she can be folded up and literally put into a pocket. She's small, she's cute, but don't underestimate her. She's tough and she's extremely intelligent, as you will see in the next hour. By the way, my first drone was named Icarus. You can guess what happened to him. The frame is composed of a lightweight plastic polymer or carbon fiber. You'll notice that the drone has 1, 2, 3, 4 propellers. That's a so-called quadcopter design. And most of the recreational drones are quadcopters. So I'm talking about a typical recreational drone. Power source is a lithium polymer battery, which is inserted here. And this is an image of the battery itself. It's relatively lightweight and it's rechargeable. Larger drones, commercial drones, military drones, actually have hydrogen fuel cell. Let's look at the propulsion system. There are basically 4 components. The propellers rotate, brushless motors rotate the propellers. Then there are electronic speed controllers, which are very important. They can vary the voltage and therefore the speed of rotation to each propeller individually. To each propeller individually, which is critical. And then there are joysticks on the ground controller. This shows 4 propellers and their rotation direction. You'll notice that 2 of the propellers rotate clockwise, this one and this one. And 2 other propellers rotate counterclockwise. This is very important because this prevents the drone from spinning out of control, which would be the consequence if all the propellers rotated in the same direction at the same time. And this is,
Excuse me, Al.
yes,
So with
question.
4, you can obviously do 2 and 2, but if you only had 3 propellers,
Where,
how does that work?
show me 3 propellers.
Well, you said that not all drones have four propellers.
This is a
This is a
quadcopter.
quad. So if you have something that isn't a quad,
Yep.
are there drones with an odd number of propellers? And in
That's
which case,
okay. I think I understand your question now. Is there such a thing as a drone with 3 propellers? I'm not aware of any. I've never seen one.
so they've got to be balanced like this with,
Yeah, you need balance. Yes.
John,
There,
in each of these, the adjacent propeller spins in the opposite direction.
right. No, I understand that. And as long as it's an odd number of propellers, that work. I mean, even number of
Even
propellers, that works.
exactly. Thank you. Thank you both. Thank you for a very good question, and thank you, Jerry, for stepping in. Absolutely. So this is really, to me, having no background in aeronautical engineering, this is so fascinating and yet so basic. How do you get all of the motion options from a quadcopter? And the answer is you vary the rotational speed. For example, if you have all 4 propellers operating at normal speed, the drone will move down due to gravity. If all 4 propellers are operating at high speed, the drone will move up. If you have the rear propellers operating at high speed, the drone will move forward. Conversely, if the forward propellers are moving at high speed, the drone will move backwards, etc. So just varying the speed of rotation determines to each of the propellers determines the direction of motion of the drone. Now, I'd like to dig deeper and show you.
Al,
Yeah,
sorry, one quick question. Is
sure.
the assumption that when the propellers are operating at normal speed, there's not enough thrust to lift the vehicle so it will fall? So it
Yes,
doesn't actually move down, it just falls.
exactly. It will
Okay.
move down. It won't move down precipitously, but it will move down.
Okay, basically it's falling
Yeah,
because there's not enough thrust pulling it up to counteract for the weight of the vehicle.
that's my understanding.
Okay.
How does it work when it's hovering?
I'm sorry?
When it hovers, is it going a little bit faster than normal speed?
When it hovers, it has calibrated the rotational speed of the propellers to balance gravity.
Wow. Right.
That's
Al, I think I'm going to ask people to hold their questions unless, it's life or death. You said there were a couple of points in the program where you were going to request questions. So let's do that. Let's let you get through your presentation.
exactly. Thank you very much. Well, let's look at a schematic that shows what I've just described. And you can see the relation of the schematic to the real object. We have the propellers that are rotating. They're being driven by the motors or rotors. The speed of rotation is controlled by the electronic speed controller. That receives directions from a power distribution panel. The power distribution panel, in turn, is given instructions from the central flight controller, and this is the brain of the drone. Let's also look at the flight control systems. It has 4 components. There are sensors which tell us where the drone is and what it's doing. It also tells us what's happening in the environment. There's a central processing unit, which, as I've just mentioned, is the brain. There are control algorithms which write the instruction manual of the drone. And then there are communication networks which guide the flow of data and instructions back and forth. So what do the sensors monitor? As I've just mentioned, they tell us where the drone is and what it's doing. They tell us what's around the drone, the vicinity of the drone. The central processing unit processes signals from the sensors that are built in to the drone. It also processes signals from the ground controller, that's where you and I are standing, and from the GPS satellites. It's critical for navigation and stability. The control algorithms, as I've mentioned, are basically the instruction manual, and they use data that is collected and processed by the central processing unit. The joysticks are what you and I control from the ground. I don't know what a joystick looks like on an airplane, but here are the joysticks on the ground controller. Communications. The drone needs to communicate with the ground controller, that's you and me, but also with the satellites. And as you might have gathered by now, I'm a picture person. So let's look at these communications from using pictures. The drone and the ground controller exchange information. The satellite sends information, data, to the drone. The drone then sends the information it's received from the satellite to the ground controller, you and me. Incidentally, military and commercial satellites, but not mine, actually send information directly to the ground. They don't require an intermediary. Well, how do the drone and the ground controller communicate? Well, most importantly, they communicate via radio signals. And I'm sure most people in this audience know more about radio signals than I do. But that becomes important in the operation of a drone. As one example, I'm told that radio signals require line of sight. There are exceptions, but in general, you need line of sight. And that becomes a practical matter if you're flying a drone and there's a mountain interposed between you and your target, or you're flying it in the city with tall buildings around you. In any event, this communication is important because it enables our remote control to control the drone, and it enables a real-time video feed from the drone camera to the ground. That's what you and I see. So if you're a photographer, you've got to have that. Then the GPS drone communications, which I've mentioned, the drone actually is in communication with multiple satellites, a minimum of 10. And there are times that I've been monitoring 17 individual satellites. That gives us triangulation, so we get a very precise idea of where my drone is. It has location, altitude, speed. The GPS enables the drone to operate autonomously. For example, a waypoint navigation site. It allows it to return home with precision. I've been on occasion shown to friends, I've put a quarter down where the drone has been launched. And if there's little or no wind velocity, it has returned to home automatically and landed on that quarter, which is amazing to me, perhaps not to you. Well, let's look at the sensors that are built into the drone. They measure different parameters, although there's some overlap in how they help the drone. An accelerator, as most of you know, measures changes in the drone's velocity and orientation. A gyroscope measures the drone's rotational movement around its 3 axes. And that's important because it allows minute, instantaneous adjustments in the power to each rotor. Think of the problems the drone has. It's flying in wind. Its propellers are rotating, producing vibration. These instantaneous adjustments allow the drone to be stable and allows me, the photographer, to capture images that have no vibration, artifact, whatever. Amazing. Magnetometer measures the strength and direction of the Earth's magnetic field. They identify the heading or compass direction of the drone. Barometers measure air pressure and help determine altitude. They assist in measuring the flight stability or maintaining the flight stability. And there's something I had never heard of until I got into droning. LiDAR. I suspect most of you, but perhaps not all of you, are familiar with LiDAR. LiDAR emits laser pulses. The return of the laser pulse is measured in real time. It's measured so precisely that it can create a three-dimensional map of the surroundings of the drone. And its processing rate is so rapid that it allows for instantaneous responses, and which can help maintain the stability of the drone. Well, here's a list of the variety of data which is transmitted from the drone to the ground controller, real-time telemetry data. Amazing. I told you that Amelia was amazing. There's another set of sensors which can detect obstacles in the environment of the drone. You have the camera, which is a simple camera. You've got infrared sensors, ultrasonic sensors, and LiDAR. If an obstacle is detected, the drone can either fly around the obstacle or it can just hover in place. Now let's look at the ground controller, which is here. The ground controller, as I've mentioned already, receives real-time telemetry data from the drone's onboard controller. And this gives us two useful functions. It allows us to send commands back to the drone to control its flight, and it allows us to control camera functions. We can change the exposure, we can change the direction in which the camera is aimed. Smartphone is an important component. The smartphone is usually hardwired with a cable. Then there are newer controllers that have their own screen. They basically have the ability to download the app directly to the controller. My smartphone has downloaded the app, so the app is built in to my smartphone. Here is what you see when you're operating the drone. This is the smartphone screen. You see what the camera sees. Whatever the camera sees, you see in real time. And then there are camera controls that I won't go into in detail here. But it also monitors the flight. It tells you the elevation of the drone. It tells you the distance from, this is a distance, it's not actually the real distance. It's the distance from a vertical point above the launch site. Well, the return to home can be initiated either by you, the operator, or it can occur automatically. It occurs automatically if the battery level drops to a low level, or if there's a loss of contact. So this is a safety feature, very important safety feature. Now, how does it know where the drone, where the launch site was? Where is home? When you launch the drone, the coordinates are identified by the GPS and are stored in the drone. So the drone knows exactly where it started. Drones are said to exhibit autonomous functions. And I asked myself at this point, what is an autonomous function? And I interrogated many definitions, and I found there was some disagreement. And I'm sure that there would be a good subject for a future talk at this meeting. What is an autonomous function and how are they achieved? I'm a simple man, so I'm going to try to keep it simple. There are several examples that I can understand for my drone. The drone tells itself when to come home, when its sensors detect a problem. The drone can identify obstacles in its immediate environment. The drone can follow predetermined flight plans. And I don't use this because I don't do moving pictures. But if you're doing a moving picture and you wanted to identify and track a hiker or a walker in your image, the drone can do that for you. Live video, also known as first-person view. It uses radio signals sent from the drone to the ground controller screen. And it can be displayed in 3 different ways. I have it on my smartphone screen. The newer ground controllers have built in, as I mentioned. And if some people can use a goggle, if you read the news articles about the Ukrainian and Russian use of drones, you will see that the soldiers that are trained to use the drones actually now have goggles. Well, bad things can happen if you have radio interference. Multiple functions of the drone can be interfered with. You can lose your video image, the ability to return from home, and the drone can even crash. Bad things. I think at this point, where I've really tried to review the technical features of how drones work, this is a good time to entertain questions. I can stop sharing, and that will allow me to see everybody, or I can have Peter identify questions by either digital hands or physical hands. Maybe let's start with that. Peter, I can see some of the participants, but only a few.
I can see everybody, Al.
Good. Why don't you I can see Ted PK.
Yeah.
Ted?
You want me to monitor this, or do you want to do it?
Well, you do it.
Okay, Ted, we have a question here first, and you're number 2.
Now, my question is, why do you have 2 joysticks on there? Do they control different rotors?
Great.
I would think that 1 joystick should be able to be sufficient.
Great question. The left-hand joystick controls upward and downward motion. The right joystick controls forward, backward, left, right motion. Oh boy, the left joystick also controls rotation. So the left joystick controls upward, downward, and lateral rotation. The right joystick controls leftward movement, right movement, forward movement, back movement.
Thank you.
And since we shouldn't confuse that with the rotation of the blades of
Right.
the drone, that's
Right.
taken care of, that's translated.
Larry, Ted's first and you're second.
Okay. I've
ahead.
often wondered, Al, why don't they
No,
use
Larry, Ted was
What?
first, please.
who's
So-
first?
so-
Ted
so-
is over there. We
Okay.
can't see you perhaps.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
We
Yep.
hear you fine.
Okay, fine. So you don't have a GPS receiver in your controller on the ground, right? You only have the GPS in the drone. How do you initialize initial position and rotation in the inertial measurement unit if the drone is sitting on the ground and it takes off? You don't know what its orientation is until sometime into the future. How do you handle that?
I don't.
You
The brains, well, you're absolutely right. Just repeat what you said. Remind people. The GPS satellites communicate directly with the controller on the drone. The drone then shares that information with the ground controller. Advanced drones do receive direct communication from the satellites. But to get to the thrust of your question, I don't. The information is stored in the drone and stored in my ground controller. The exact coordinates of the launch site are stored.
Right, but it takes some time for the drone to acquire the satellites. Do you acquire the satellites when the drone's sitting on the ground?
Absolutely. You absolutely. In fact, you should not launch the drone until you have identified the presence of multiple satellites.
Yeah. So obviously, if you had a GPS or GNSS receiver and your controller, you could program the drone while sitting on the ground. But you require the drone to acquire the satellites before it's able to be launched, which limits you, obviously, if you're in the cluster of tall buildings or something like that, you have to wait till the drone is in the air before it has a chance to acquire the satellites.
No, the drone, I know the precise number of satellites that are talking to the drone, which is on the ground at my feet, before I ever launch the drone.
Yeah, what I'm saying is if the satellites are not at that instant visible to the drone, you by your system, you're saying you can't launch.
You shouldn't launch it.
Okay, confused then, but whatever. I'll let it go.
Al, I've often wondered why are not drones used to monitor the border so that
They
you don't
are.
have to build.
Yeah,
Monitor what, Larry?
Yes,
To monitor what?
the border, the southern border, rather than build a big wall. I would think this would be less expensive.
Just wanted to say, I have read recent articles that there are drones and the administration is sending more.
Okay.
And drones are used for border surveillance. I believe Israel uses them extensively for lots of different things, and I'm sure other countries do too. What Al is doing is, not that different from what the military does, except the hardware is perhaps more sophisticated. The drones are more autonomous. They give, instead of still pictures, they give real life video feeds. They can give video feeds with the cameras with multiple wavelengths. You can look at infrared, you can look at, ultraviolet, you can look at all these different wavelengths separately and bring them back. So you have night vision, you have daytime vision, you have all this stuff. And it's there. It's just up in the air until somebody decides that they want to shoot one down. They just hang around and look at the borders all day long until they run out of fuel, if you will.
Yeah, but I'd like to clarify something that is slightly misleading in the news reports. The term first person view. The news articles seem to exaggerate what first person view is in covering the Ukrainian war. My recreational drone and all recreational drones have person view. It's just live video feed. I don't do, it's what the camera sees. If I were to record continuously in a cinematic mode, I'd have a moving picture. If I take still images, which is all I do, you have a still image. And they make it sound like there's something advanced and special about first person view. There really isn't. Thank you.
The biggest problem at the border in many places is that you don't have a direct line of sight because of ravines and things like that limit your ability to look at people who are approaching the border and then track the people as they cross the border and things like that. It'd be nice if it was all flat desert, but it's not. It's a highly varied terrain, and you have to accommodate that. A lot of the surveillance on the border is done with aerostats, which are basically blimps that are tethered, and that's because the drones all the time have to be coming up and down if they're not to lose track of things as they're deployed. So they can function in a role, but it's not a panacea.
All right, let's not go down border surveillance.
Peter, can I
We
ask?
don't have time for that.
Peter, can I make a comment? I can't see how to raise my hand.
Under reactions on the bottom, you have raise your hand as one of the options, but
I don't see reactions. Oh, I see it now. Okay. Well, anyway, I wanted to, as a wonderful explanation, Al. I wanted to emphasize something and ask you a question. And you alluded to it only briefly, but in the Hollywood movies, in almost every movie, practically, like the protagonist walks into a building or something, they will show have a drone view of the actors walking in or walking out of a building. But in the chase scenes, the car chase scenes, if you look, the cars are really centered in a point on the screen, so they're obviously being tracked to do that. Can you comment on how the drone tracks these speeding cars to keep them centered on the film?
I can't dig deep into the technology, but the basic principle is the same as when you use face recognition on your normal camera. It identifies it's a pattern recognition algorithm that identifies your face. I believe it's the same technology.
And just holds the speeding car right to that view.
It frames the vehicle and goes from there.
It fixes on that. You indicate what you want it to fix on. It does facial recognition or more broadly, pattern recognition, and fixes on that object.
Jerry?
Steve, go ahead.
Okay, Jerry, have you ever used Front Stage on an iPad or a Mac machine? Because it will trace you as you move around in the room. It will follow your image. It's a similar type of thing that they use.
Interesting. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Oh, we got a bunch of. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I have a question regarding the precision of the positioning, because the implication that you said it took off from put a quarter on the ground and it positioned back to that quarter would give you a feeling that the precision is about an inch. And I find that highly unlikely using a GPS system. And I know, for example, that altitude is better done with barometric sensors than it is with GPS. And that I think the drone shows use their own GPS systems provide higher precision. So I wonder if you could speak more to the actual precision of positioning of a drone. Thank you.
I'm not sure I can. When I mentioned the sensors, their functions overlap, their applications overlap, so that I wonder, I can't really answer your question, but I wonder if the precise localization of the launch site is achieved not only by GPS, by some of the other sensors that are on the drone that I've described. That's speculation. That's really not an answer to your question. I would also mention, if you remember my comment said, if there is little or no wind, the accuracy with which the drone returns to the launch site is dependent on wind velocity. If you have a high wind velocity, it will return automatically further from the launch site than certainly to a quarter. But I can take you out and show you on a calm day, it really does return to the quarter, but it has to be a windless day.
So that would imply then that the GPS is not being used.
So there's something else besides GPS.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be that'd be the inertial measurement unit, and that was the question I asked about in initializing it. The answer as far as GPS is if you let it sit in one place and acquire multiple satellites over multiple time slices, you can get very high precision on the ground. But for motion, that evaporates very quickly, so that the best you're going to do with a moving GPS system is maybe 5 or 10 meters. So you can see it if you just have a GPS in your car and you follow its instructions. It'll tell you when to turn, and if you make the wrong turn, it'll take a little time before it recognizes that. So
that's okay, because my wife knows immediately.
Well, this is a typical medium-priced drone. It's the DJI Mavic Air 2. This is the camera attached to the undersurface of the drone at the front. And maybe I can even show it to you here. Here's Amelia. Can you see Amelia?
Yep, just barely.
Yeah.
It because of the background, it keeps going in and out, Alan. It's not easy to show. But now you can see it in front of your face.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep, the black dot is the camera.
Great.
What are the two sorry. What are the two eyeballs on either side of the camera?
They are sensors, but I can't tell you which sensors. This is a view of the camera from underneath, a close-up view. This distance is approximately 3/4 of an inch, so it's very, very small. So what are the camera specs? For those of you who are familiar with cameras, as I said, my camera is a medium-priced camera. The definition of medium price keeps rising. And if we have the tariffs on China, it's going to go even higher. The most important single determinant of image quality is the size of the sensor. And the size ranges from a 1/2 inch to an inch. Mine happens to be a 1/2 inch. My iPhone 14 Pro, just to give you a comparator, my iPhone 14 Pro camera is a 1/2 inch. If you have the newer iPhone Pro, it's a 1-inch sensor, so it has a higher resolution. It records 12 to 48 megapixel. It can record in either JPEG or combined JPEG RAW. The aperture is fixed, unlike your normal camera. It's fixed at 2.8, and the lens is usually a wide-angle focal length. That is a low focal length, less than 35 millimeters. It can be operated in either automatic or customized mode for the ISO, or the ISO is a measure of the sensitivity of the sensor, shutter speed, white balance, color profile, the same as your own camera. Has a high dynamic range, and it can record video, which I don't use. And we talked a moment ago about subject tracking. Oops. If you want to spend more money for a camera, you get more sensitive sensors, greater than 1 inch. You can get variable apertures. You can get optical zoom, but it achieves optical zoom the same way your upscale iPhones do. They do it by using several lenses. And you can even get interchangeable lenses on commercial grade. You know, if you're a professional, you buy your drone separately from your camera, and you attach the camera. And then geotagging allows you to identify the precise location where your image was captured. And it can be very useful if you want to go back. I give talks and I give courses, and I want to know, gee, where did I take that image 2 years ago? You have a record of that. Aiming the camera, which is rather important. You can aim the camera in one of two ways. You can change the direction in which your drone looks. Okay? Up, down, rotate. That's one way of changing what the camera sees. The other way of changing what the camera sees is to have the drone hover, but have the camera angle change independently. Well, how does the camera angle change independently? It has a device called a gimbal that is attached, and the gimbal can be rotated in several axes so that it will move the camera direction. The gimbal not only controls the direction in which the camera points, but it also stabilizes the camera in wind, vibration, because the gimbal receives instructions from the central processor that helps it to deal with vibrations and wind velocity. Well, here's really a critical question. What's the big deal about drone photography? Why invest $1,500 and rush off? The single most important big deal is the ability to take pictures from unique perspectives. You have almost an infinite variety of perspectives because you can change the camera angle, as I've just shown you. You can change the altitude at which the image is taken. You can pan horizontally. So you have a wide variety of perspectives. You can also control the direction of the light. I mean, I'm a pretty powerful guy, but I can't change the location of the sun. But I can change the location of the drone in relation to the sun. If I'm looking down at an image that has reflections off water, and I don't like what that does to my composition, I simply fly the drone to the other side of my target, turn it around 180 degrees. Now I have the sun behind me and I can look down on my target. So that's very useful. The other advantages of drone photography, you can reach sites that are inaccessible or hazardous. You can take images in the middle of an alligator-infected swamp. You can take images of a glacier if you've gone to Iceland. You can take images of something interesting on an island that you could otherwise only reach by a boat. It's very useful. You can see things you would not have imagined in the landscape. I mean, it's a cliche, it sounds corny, but they're just amazing things on the surface of our planet, many of which are not accessible to us except from space, from Google Earth, from an airplane, or from a drone. Just amazing. You get a sense of scale or context. You're interested in an object, but you get context and scale for seeing what's around the object. And obviously, it's cheaper to fly a drone than to hire a helicopter or an airplane. There are challenges, and let's look at the challenges. You've got to work rapidly. You have a finite battery life. You need to multitask. You're really wearing two hats. You're a pilot, but you're also a photographer. As a pilot, you need to constantly focus on avoiding obstacles, monitoring connectivity. How many satellites do you have? You're being sent warning messages. There's an airplane in your vicinity. Reduce your altitude. As a photographer, you need to make creative decisions about composition. You need to change camera settings to adjust the exposure. So you've got to multitask. Then there are other more obvious challenges. There are finite limits to the battery charge, finite limits to the signal range. You can lose the signal from interference, and fixed aperture and focal length are minor issues. They've not been issues for me. They may be if you're a more serious photographer. Operator experience, learning curve, obviously. And then I anticipate that some members of the public are paranoid. They think of a drone as an intrusion on their privacy. And I try to respect that. I try to avoid launching my drone where there are a lot of people around. And then we have FAA regulations. And here are the more obvious ones. If your drone is greater than 250 grams, you need to register it. Amelia weighs a pound and a quarter. You need to fly under 400 feet. You're not, in theory, you're not allowed to fly within 5 miles of an airport. Well, you and I have to deal with Hanscom. In reality, you can fly within 5 miles of an airport. And this is a wonderful power of the drone technology. You will talk to the airport and be given permission for from certain distances in certain areas that are off flight paths. In theory, you need to keep within line of sight. Well, stop for a minute and think about that. You saw how large Amelia is. I can barely see her when she's 300 feet, 400 feet in the air. How could I possibly see her a mile away? You can't. So and I assume most other drone pilots violate that requirement on a regular basis. We are monitored by the FAA. We have messages that are sent that are picked up by the FAA, by airports, for example, that will send us warnings and will not allow us to fly within certain areas. And there are no-fly zones. Here's a laundry list of no-fly zones. Let you read those. They're basically common sense. You're not going to fly over Soldiers Field during the Harvard-Yale game. You're not going to fly over the Charles River during the head of the Charles. Okay. I'd like you to come with me on a drone shoot, okay? We're going to deal with several things. First, we're going to do some pre-shoot planning. When we arrive at the launch site, we're going to do a pre-flight checklist. We're going to launch the drone. We're going to fly the drone. We're going to capture images. And if we're fortunate, we're going to return home safely. Okay? Pre-shoot planning, very important. You want to choose your location well. You obviously want something that's going to be interesting. Make an aesthetically pleasing, interesting image. And you also want to be able to launch from a safe area. And this is where Google Earth is an enormous help. I use it routinely to address both of those questions. On the day of the shoot, we're going to go into our weather app at the location and tune in the location that we're going to visit and make sure that it's safe to fly in terms of temperature and wind velocity. These are the official DJI limits. I don't trust them. And I lost a drone last summer flying when the ambient temperature was 106. Well, I didn't think about what the drone temperature would be at 300 feet, or what the drone, which I keep in my car trunk continuously, what that trunk temperature was with my car outside. And I lost the drone. You can fly safely up to 15 miles per hour. If it's really important and you think there is a life-changing image to be captured, I have flown over 15. I've flown up to 20. And the drone firmware should be periodically updated. You arrive at the launch site. You repeat the check of temperature and wind velocity. You look around. What's in your environment? Towers, buildings, trees, power lines. These are beginner mistakes. You and I aren't going to make those anymore. You check the battery power in 3 separate devices. You check it in the drone, you check it in your ground controller and your iPhone. You want full charge or near full charge. You examine the physical condition of the drone. This takes seconds. Okay? And as I said earlier in this talk, you turn the drone on, and then you will be given on your iPhone screen the number of satellites. You adjust your camera depending on what the exposure. If it's an cloudy day, you increase the exposure, etc. You launch the drone. You take pictures. And one of the wonderful things about my drone is that the image is recorded in 2 places. So you've got redundancy. There's a memory card built in, a memory card that you put into a slot in the side of the drone and that you'll later remove. It's also recorded on your smartphone. Flight time, in theory, this model does 30 to 35 minutes. I prefer to limit myself to 15 to 20 minutes. Why? The drone if the drone goes down, it automatically sends a signal that you can pick up in Find My Drone. And you can be led to where the drone is down. And I've had to do that once. It wasn't pleasant. And it took me time to get to the drone. So you want the signal to be, you want time left in the battery life to reach a down drone. That's why I would limit myself to 15 or 20 minutes. And you don't really need more than that because you're working quickly. So I'm open to questions about the drone. Peter, if you could handle the questions.
Yeah, Larry, go ahead.
Have you ever used AI to enhance your pictures?
Well, that's post-processing, Larry. Post-processing, I don't know that I use AI. I do use a very simple editing program. I use Photoshop Elements, and I use a fraction of what Elements offers. And I've given a talk called the 4-Minute Fix. It's based on the principle you can't make a silk purse out of a pig's ear.
Dan.
Give that one up.
Arthur D. Little did.
Junk in, junk out. So I don't do a lot of editing. AI, give me an example, Larry, of how AI would enhance droning. I'm curious.
The reason I asked that question is because my son sent the picture into AI and says enhance me, and they basically, enhanced his features and stuff.
Yeah.
They also did a rotation, which I thought was interesting. He had a side view when he went in, and the AI picture came and had him vertical.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
The AI started with an image, i.e. a digital file. And it's the same, I produce digital files, but you do the same thing with your feet on the ground. You've always had your feet on the ground, Larry.
That's an assumption.
Yeah.
Question here. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I was wondering if.
Actually, the gentleman
I'm
next to you
sorry.
first.
Jay Flynn. Is there a way, especially in the recreational drone, that you can separate the functions of controlling the drone versus controlling the camera, like having two people interact?
So you're asking about tracking mechanism.
Well, two people.
No, I think he wants to understand making sure the drone is in the right position and composing the picture as two different things.
Hey, one of the line items was multitasking, where you have to pilot and photograph at the same time. He's asking if that can be, the photographing can be delegated to another person.
Is
Like-
that your question?
No,
Good.
no, well, I don't think so, because you're working from the app screen. The app screen controls both the camera controls and the image you see on, and the location of the drone that produces the first person view image. I don't think so.
Can I make one quick comment?
Yeah, please.
Response to that. So my experience is that some of the flying functions actually revert to a more or less autonomous mode. So station keeping is trivial. If you want to, you think of it as like flying a plane or flying a helicopter, you'd have to be like really actively managing it to hold station. You can just tell the drone hold still, and it will hold almost perfectly still. So then you can concentrate on pointing the camera and doing things. So that
But I
kind of
totally
factors in.
understand what your question is.
That's-
Only doing two things at the same time, it's gotten much more difficult.
Well, you're better than I am. I can't do one thing at the same time.
There's nothing inherent that prevents that. It's just a matter of like, does that particular drone or that app allow multiple people to connect to it at the same time? I'm sure more complicated ones do.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, commercial ones probably have, people doing real-time editing of the images and station keeping and all this stuff and all this other stuff.
Some question as to how we're doing here.
Yeah, because AI is trying to transcribe. They want to make sure it's English.
Yeah.
Let's see. There was somebody else here. Yeah, go ahead first.
Alan, so my question is about being able to upgrade components on the drone and also maintenance for components.
Great question. I do not upgrade in terms of physical attachments, but there is firmware which DJI periodically upgrades. And you may recall I mentioned that part of preparing for a flight is to interrogate your drone to see if it has firmware upgrades to be downloaded. And that's what I do routinely about once a month. I'll do that. And then what was the second part of your question?
Yeah, the second part was maintenance.
I'm sorry, the
maintenance.
Oh, maintenance, yeah.
Yeah.
Changing the oil and stuff like that.
Yeah. Propellers breaking,
Calibrating.
I take very good care of the drone in general. It doesn't really require maintenance. There is a protective cap. Can you see the protective cap in my hand?
No, but that's okay.
I'll put it on my nose.
Hold it right in front of your face. There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, protect your nose. I got it.
It can also be used as a nose protector. It goes on the lens.
Yeah.
That's very important. I don't really do any other maintenance. I charge the battery. I'm very careful to maintain battery charge. I have, believe it or not, 6 batteries to be sure that I have at least 3. I'll go on a shoot to the North Shore, the great marsh that runs from Gloucester north to Newburyport is a treasure of drone images. You'll see some in a couple of minutes. It's a treasure house. So I will use 3 or 4 launch sites in the North Shore area. So I try to keep 6 batteries charged, and I try to have at least 3 when I leave for a drone shoot. So I maintain battery charge. Any other question? I see Ted.
Yeah, Ted's up. You're muted, Ted, please. That's better.
Do you do any kind of sort of photogrammetry kind of things with your imagery? Do you try to overlap images and try to locate from slightly different angles and things where a particular object is that you're photographing or something?
Well, if you're referring to that as a practical application, no. I use the drone for only one purpose, to get pretty pictures. Simple as that.
Mm-hmm. But if you want to come back and shoot some, let's say it's not a person, it's an object. Like I was up at Saugus Iron Works last week with my brother, and I would have loved to have had a drone to take some pictures from there. I took pictures from various angles on the edges of the buildings and things like that. But the problem is always trying to make sure you could go back and take another shot from the same angle or a different angle if you wanted to.
Well, if you have multiple shots, you could do them the same thing you would do with shots from ground level.
Do you have any metadata coming from the drone about the orientation and all that, or is that just the image?
Just the image.
Just the image.
Yeah.
Al, doesn't the sensor pull in the same metadata that you do like on your iPhone? It has latitude and longitude and some other things associated with the image itself.
No, that's geotagging. You're talking.
That's what I meant to ask. Right. The extra.
If you're willing to spend more money, probably 2,000 and up, you'll get a drone that will geotag. And as I said, that's probably a feature I miss. I would like, Peter, I'd like to do the final part, which is the picture show.
Go for it.
Okay, and we can still have time for questions.
You're in charge.
Okay, this is the dreaded picture show, and I find that my images fall into 3 broad categories. Conventional landscapes, which means you recognize this is a landscape. It just happens to be a bird's eye view. And then what I call abstract landscapes, which are taken, they're pictures of the earth, they're natural pictures, but they're a little hard to appreciate that they're really landscapes. And they're my favorite. And then man-made structures, which will be pretty obvious. So we'll start with conventional landscapes. This is an estuary that leading into Cape Cod Bay. Estuaries are wonderful. They're a very beautiful source of images. Anyone recognize this? Some of you must know it. This is a view looking down on the Sudbury River, taken from one of my favorite launch sites, which is on Route 117, where it crosses the Sudbury River. Proximal to that site would be the parking lot for Mount Misery, and distal to that site is Verrill Farm. Some of you must know that area. Any of you know this? Very close. None of these are exotic places. This is Rock Meadow Conservation Area in Belmont, near the McLean Hospital, winter scene, obviously. This is the Great Marsh, probably Ipswich. This is a conservation trail off Trapello Road in Waltham. Abstract landscapes, this is a personal preference. I like ambiguity. I like mystery. I don't think I'll ever be able to replicate this. Believe it or not, you never guess what this is. This is the surface of Walden Pond on a particular winter day 2.5 years ago. There was a series of freezes and thaws. Freeze, thaw, freeze, thaw. I've been back subsequently in the winter when the pond is frozen. I've never seen anything like this. And you recognize here, black is open water, but the scale, this is inches. This is feet. Black is open water, pure white is ice, and the gray is in between.
What altitude were you at?
Good question. Low, very low. Probably 30 feet, 20 feet. I'm guessing, but certainly low. Cape Cod Bay, low tide. Low tide is you have, as you might imagine, more interesting topography. Sand and gravel. Sand and gravel sites are rich, believe it or not, in abstraction.
Also low altitude?
Yes, yes, you're right on. You absolutely. This is a path and a bridge on Cape Cod. It's a wetland.
Is that true color?
Cape Cod, it's a
No,
wet.
are the colors true in that?
It looks like the bridge is on fire or your surroundings.
Yes,
in the fall.
yes, and I can't take credit. I may occasionally use increased saturation, but one of the strange things is the color in the landscape that I don't see with my naked eye. And that's probably due to the way that my camera has been pre-processed. All you photographers understand that every camera, the manufacturer has already made decisions for us, but it's chosen how to program the camera for color saturation. That's
What company made the camera?
I'm not sure. DJI uses Hasselblad on its upscale models. I don't know if mine is a Hasselblad. Sorry, Jerry, don't know. So this is Cape Cod Bay, and it happens to be low tide with sandbars altering the flow of water. Man-made structures, a playground in Waltham.
Yeah, near Fernald.
I'm sorry?
I think it's near Fernald, the Fernald site.
200 Trapello.
Oh,
Yeah, off Trapello Road.
Yeah, this one is actually off Lake Street. Lake Street.
Oh, I know where that is. Yeah.
It comes off Lake Street. Lake Street comes off Lexington Street and
Yep.
go, you know that it's the one off Lake Street. Anyone know this? It's in Lexington, man-made.
Yeah.
The playground, what's across from the temple,
Lexington Field, Lincoln Field,
yeah, which field?
Lincoln.
That's right, Lincoln Field.
Where?
It's a granite forest.
Oh, you mean, that area?
Oh, yes.
The walking path.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know this one. There could be any. We give our age away by calling it a victory garden. It's the one in Belmont, Stone Meadow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I've done a lot of victory gardens. Stone Meadow is the best. It's a farm to be unnamed.
Yeah, that's Wilson's.
I'm no comment.
Yeah. It looks like with the bridge going over the stream that goes by there. Looks like Wilson's Twin Seasons.
And we talked about colors. Somebody asked about colors. These are the real colors. They're not what my eyes saw. They're only slightly tweaked for saturation. Sand and gravel. Burlington.
Oh.
Wow.
Thank you. Peter, I want to thank everybody, but special thanks to Adam for not barking and Don for not meowing.